Hi, it's me, that one guy. Alright, so let me give you some context. I was scrolling through YouTube one day and saw this video. How hard is Geometry Dash? Now mind you, I'd call myself a GD fan, so I was curious and decided to check it out. Only to find out the video is quite literally the definition of the dumbest rage bait you'll ever see. As thus, I was inspired to make this video, so feel free to consider this a pseudo-response to me mildly disagreeing with someone. And if you're asking, I've beaten an insane demon and I'm actively working on Bloodbath. So let's begin. First off, what makes a game difficult? Well, based on definitions by dictionaries, difficult means taking a lot of effort and skill. I'm not gonna go in depth with definitions, since I assume you know what effort and skill are. Basic gist, beating a demon in GD is difficult, beating Wily Capsule from Mega Man 7 is difficult, playing against D-Monsters in Barotrauma is difficult, playing as Grease in Victoria 2 is difficult. Hey wait, those games have very little in common. Yeah, this leads me to the first issue I have with the original video. The claim that GD is somehow, someway harder than games barely related to it. The original video I mentioned at the beginning compares GD to FNAF, Rocket League, Fortnite, Souls games, and chess. These games are not even remotely similar. GD is a rhythm platformer based on click patterns. FNAF is a point-and-click survival horror game. Souls games are all in a different dimension, and by far the most baffling comparisons are Rocket League, Fortnite, and chess. All three have multiplayer elements, but are different in how they handle multiplayer. Rocket League is essentially car football, or soccer for your Americans. Fortnite is a 100-person FPS, and chess is a 1v1 strategy game. Apologies if my definitions of Rocket League and Fortnite are off, I haven't played them. Now, why am I bringing up genres? Because different genres inherently require different skills. Someone who is great at strategy would probably perform better in chess, while someone else who is great at rhythm and pattern recognition would be better at GD. The closest comparison is GD and FNAF, but even then the difference here is that GD goes for music while FNAF goes for ambient. These two things are comparable to an extent, and I can see GD being harder than FNAF, but this is seriously beginning to stretch it, especially since one is far more random than the other. And mind you, comparisons are not inherently bad, but we're not talking about reasonable comparisons, which would be something like comparing GD to a platformer or rhythm game. We're talking about comparing GD to chess. Like I said before, these two are barely even comparable, so to say one is harder than the other ignores how these two are literally nothing alike. I'd like to note that even in Geometry Dash, there's a lot of debate over difficulty. Not everyone is good at the same game mode, not everyone likes the same game modes, so on and so forth. This leads to one level feeling easier whilst another feels harder, even if one has a higher difficulty rating than the other. Now, for big gaps between difficulty like Stereo Madness and Deadlock, the harder of the two is much clearer, but the closer in difficulty, like Ultra Paracosm and the Lightning Road, the more it depends on the player. All of this to say, people are different and will by that fact have different skills. Here's a minor sticking point after all of this is said, which is, how does one even measure difficulty? Just by me saying what I've said beforehand, it should be made perfectly clear that it's basically impossible without some degree of bias. I could hear an argument that QE 2 is easier than Clubstep, since while both are similar in difficulty, Clubstep differs by having more difficult strip and UFO. Don't take my word for it, take the GDDL's word. And this goes for basically every level. A lot of the difficulty depends on your skill set, aka how good you are at each game mode. Another minor point, the skill ceiling thing. Yes, GD has a higher theoretical skill ceiling than what we currently have, but this goes for practically every singular game in existence, as long as they have user-generated content. GD is not the only game where users can make whatever levels they like. Hell, even games that aren't intended for this have been molded into it. Just look at the dozens of Kaizo ROM hacks for Super Mario World. Also, let's be clear here, frame perfects are extremely context dependent. Different refresh rates change the timings or even remove some frame perfects. And frame perfects in other games are far more difficult since they use, you know, more than one button. Yeah, I'm gonna go to that point now. GD always has been a one-button game, and while there are multiple ways the formula has been twisted, at the end of the day it still just uses one button. Inherently this isn't a problem. Hell, it's even nice to have this high of difficulty with just one button. But the simple truth is that with more buttons, the difficulty is increased significantly. Just look at I Wanna Be the Guy, a game that was intentionally made to be difficult for the funny, and its countless fan games. And this once again circles back to the skill set argument. A great GD player does not equate to a great player in every other video game, which is to say that I do not believe there is a hardest game. No game that exists challenges every skill out there, and that's mainly because it wouldn't be a fun game. Instead, every game challenges different skill sets, and sure, some are more difficult than others, but in the end, to claim that any of these are the hardest game is ridiculous. So with all of this said, what is the takeaway here? Well, it's that GD is still a special game and experience despite all of this. The game is still good, it's still fun, and most of all, it's still difficult. All of the discussion before does not discount the feats done, like the numerous completion of high-end extremes, or the insane creations done in the level editor. The simple truth is that GD does not need to be the hardest game to be special. Also, if this video was rage bait, I'll take the L. Who's the guy behind the props, and why do we have an L?